Is Ukraine about to collapse? Has Armenia resumed flights to Crimea? And is Poland about to punish freedom of speech? Disinformation never stops, and neither do we. Welcome to StopFake, the place where we set the record straight on fakes about Ukraine. So let's get to it. With the help of Kremlin-friendly experts, Russian media continue to peddle their much-loved narrative about the breakup of Ukraine. Pravda.ru claims several Ukrainian regions are poised to secede, leading to a future Ukrainian collapse. As much as Russia and the Kremlin might want to see such a collapse, a recent poll conducted by the Democratic Initiatives Fund at the end of 2019 shows that 75% of Ukrainian residents consider themselves first and foremost to be Ukrainians. The Pravda.ru story features political analyst Anton Bradykhin, who claims that disintegration processes have been going on in Ukraine for a long time and have recently intensified. Before becoming a political analyst, Bradykhin was the coordinator of the Donbass for the Eurasian Union movement, propagating Russian separatism in Ukraine and threatening to spread the separatism bug all the way to the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The movement's page on the Russian social media platform Vkontakte is filled with conspiracy theories and fakes. Now, Bradykhin can spin his separatism stories all he wants, but the science of sociology, however, paints a radically different picture in Ukraine, a picture that has nothing to do with misguided dreams of a great Russia. One of the questions asked in last December's extensive poll conducted by the Democratic Initiatives Fund was, how do you see yourselves first of all? 75% responded first and foremost, they consider themselves Ukrainian citizens. As for individual regions in Ukraine, national self-identification takes precedence over regional loyalties in all the areas polled. For example, in central Ukraine, 78% said they see themselves as Ukrainians first, while only 14% preferred a regional identification. In western Ukraine, 76% chose national identification over 70% who opted for a regional one, while in southern Ukraine the numbers were even higher, with 84% saying their Ukrainian citizenship was their primary national identity and only 12% preferred a regional affiliation. So what about eastern Ukraine? After all, the Kremlin has been pushing a myth that eastern Ukraine wants to join Russia, and many Western experts repeat this in publications and on talk shows. Well, in eastern Ukraine, 66% opted for Ukrainian national identification and 18% preferred the regional approach. So much for the myth that Ukrainians want to be with Russia. Last week, Russian media launched a wave of fake stories claiming that Armenia and the Russian occupation forces in Crimea agreed to resume flights between the annexed Ukrainian peninsula and the Armenian capital Yerevan, with Pegas Fly, a Russian airline based in Krasnoyarsk, receiving permission to operate 7 flights a week from Simferopol to Yerevan. Similar fake stories were already circulating in the Russian media last December. At that time, Armenia refuted the rumors, saying there had been no negotiations with any Russian airline, no proposals had been submitted, and there was no agreement. Later, Armenian civil aviation official Stepan Payaslyan explained that only the Russian side had agreed to such flights, but the Armenian side did not. But the Kremlin's fake factory keeps on trying, because a few weeks after that, rumors about the launch of flights from annexed Crimea to Yerevan resumed and once again turned out to be fakes. Now, on January the 10th, the Armenian Civil Aviation Administration issued a statement saying they had not held negotiations with Russian airlines regarding flights from Yerevan to Simferopol, nor had they received any requests in this regard from any airlines. So, despite 3 official denials on the part of Armenia, Russian media continued to push fake stories about the international status of the Simferopol airport. On January the 13th, during a press conference in Yerevan, the chairman of the Armenian Civil Aviation Administration Committee, Tatevik Revazyan, refuted these Russian claims for a 4th time. Ms. Revazyan pointed out, quote, "Our committee has already refuted these claims, and I want to do it once again. I don't know who distributes such news, but it has nothing to do with us." We fully expect Ms. Revazyan to refute Russian disinformation at least a few more times. Poland's parliament recently adopted a resolution condemning the spread of Russian propaganda, also known as lies, about Polish history. Russian media reacted to this by declaring that the United States is backing and financing Poland's anti-Russian policies. Russia's leading pro-Kremlin publications declared that Washington, D.C. is ordering Poland what to do, that Poland refuses to accept historical facts, that Poland resorts to rewriting the history of World War II, and get this, that Poland is justifying Nazism. The newspaper Vzгляд raises their convulsive rhetoric and even claims that Poland intends to pass legislation that will infringe on freedom of speech that allows for the prosecution of those who think differently. Vzгляd menacingly warns, quote, "Given current means of communication and monitoring, we will soon see censorship of such magnitude that censorship of socialist Poland will seem like kindergarten." Now, there's a backstory to this. Poland's struggle against Russian disinformation concerning history escalated last December. During his annual press marathon, Russian President Vladimir Putin called Poland's pre-World War II leadership anti-Semites. On December the 24th, 2019, Putin went even further and said that Poland had actively cooperated with Nazi Germany and, get this, that there was a conspiracy of Western states with Hitler that paved the road to World War II. In response, the Polish Foreign Ministry called Putin's words a propaganda message from the time of Stalinist totalitarianism, which was condemned even by Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. Poland's foreign ministry summoned Russian ambassador Sergei Andreyev and protested against Putin's historical insinuations. In a statement published in several languages, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki accused Vladimir Putin of knowingly disseminating false information. Morawiecki reminded Putin that the Russian people, who deserve the truth, were Stalin's greatest victims, and it is unacceptable to present perpetrators as victims. Putin's words outraged not only the Polish leadership. Both the United States and Germany spoke out in Poland's support, reminding the Russian leader that Poland was the victim of totalitarianism and a conspiracy between Stalin and Hitler, and that led to World War II. So, on January the 9th, the Polish parliament adopted a resolution concerning Russian propaganda that denigrates Poland. The resolution condemns provocative and incorrect statements by Russian authorities trying to hold Poland accountable for World War II. The resolution does not contain any reference to Russian criminal liability for propaganda. It is this resolution that Russian media calls a law aimed at infringing on freedom of speech. On the eve of the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of World War II in 2019, Russia unleashed a massive disinformation campaign aimed at revising and falsifying historical facts. Because, in the words of former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Powers, Russia wants you to live in an upside-down world.
Russia speaks of peace and then fuels conflict. Russia signs agreements and then does everything within its power to undermine them. Russia champions the sovereignty of nations and then acts as if a neighbor's borders do not exist. Yet even for those of us growing accustomed to living in an upside-down world, the idea that Russia, which manufactured and continues to escalate the violence in Ukraine, has tabled a resolution today calling for the conflict's peaceful solution is ironic, to say the least. We are looking to Russia, which manufactured and fueled this conflict, to leave the upside-down world it has created and to honor the resolution it tabled today supporting efforts to end it.
That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on our website, StopFake.org. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, remember, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.